Change is hard, not because you're doing it wrong, but because it asks something of you. Welcome to Change is Hard, a podcast from the Leadership Lab. I'm Audrey Blair, and this is a space for leaders who are learning how to sit with uncertainty, make decisions without rushing, and grow without losing themselves in the process. We'll talk about the moments that stretch you, the conversations you keep avoiding, and the quiet shifts that change everything. No noise, no pressure, just honest conversations about becoming the kind of leader and human you actually want to be. Let's get into it. Hi there. Welcome. Welcome to the episode. And I'm happy to be back. I know that it's been a little while. Took a little bit of a hiatus there. And actually, I'm going to start with a bit of a confession. At this moment, the working title for this podcast is Why Being Busy is a Form of Self-Soothing. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that or not, but that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I kept myself busy all day to avoid doing the very thing that I'm doing right now. Now it's at night, and I wanted to do this first thing this morning, but I let my nerves get in the way. Lots of things came up for me, which then allowed me, or at least I allowed myself to push this off all day. But I also thought this is getting done today because I've put it off before as well. So here we are. I totally understand what it is that I'm going to be talking with you today. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat down and you didn't immediately reach for something to do? No phone, no email, no, I'll just knock out this one thing, no grabbing a snack, grabbing the remote control, just still. I'll give you a second to pause and think about it. It's probably been a while. And even when you lie down to go to bed, a lot of times the last thing we do is we pick up something just to check for what's happening, either what happened today or what's going on for tomorrow. So if your body reacted to that a little bit, that's kind of the point. And most of the time, we think that we're busy because we have too much work, or we feel overwhelmed because there's too much work. Listen, there's always going to be work. There's always something to do. But that's actually not what's happening. You stay busy because it does feel regulating. Busy keeps you steady. It keeps you useful. And something we probably don't talk enough about is that it keeps the noise down. Right? All the things that might raise to the surface if we sit down and are still for a while. Think about when you're a kid. At least when I was a kid, and those of you over a certain age, you remember your parents or adults saying things like, go find something to do because you're sitting around. Go find something to do. And so we got used to finding things to do. And being still then created some discomfort. Activity became the solution. And somewhere along the way, you probably got really good at it. So now fast forward, you finish a task, you check something off a list, you answer an email, you fix a problem, and you feel it, that tiny hit of relief that, if you're a checkbox person, you like checking things off a list, how good that feels, checking things off the list. Okay, that's handled. That is the self-soothing part that I'm talking about. And a lot of times it shows up when you tell yourself, I'll just take care of it. It's faster if I do it. How many of you are out there talking about, hey, if I do it, let me just take care of it. I'll take that. Let me clear my plate first before I get to this other bigger thing that I'm trying to avoid. And on the surface, it looks responsible. Listen, I did stuff with my taxes today. I had some client calls today. I'm getting some of my numbers together. So it wasn't like I wasn't doing anything. But a lot of times what's happening is your mind is saying, if I stay in motion, I don't have to feel uncertain about something. If I stay in motion, I don't have to feel this discomfort. And I see it all the time with high performers. They're not lazy. They're not avoiding work. But what they do tend to do is avoid the discomfort by doing. And discomfort is like waiting, letting someone else struggle or letting someone else figure it out. not being needed in a situation, not being the one that is going to be the subject matter expert, sitting in a conversation longer than it feels efficient. Sometimes we want to rush through conversations and we want to jump ahead and leap ahead. Or even admitting that you don't have the answer yet. So you do the thing you know how to do. You get busy. You're like, let me figure it out. Let me go do something. And I know you've also seen this happen. You're in a meeting, someone asks a question, and then there's a pause. And your brain goes, I know this. I know the answer. I really want this other person to answer, or I really think that this other person should be able to answer this. But instead, you can't contain it and you jump in and you explain it and you solve it and you get things moving forward. And then there's a big exhale. It's like, okay, great, let's go. Because the silence can certainly feel a little bit uncomfortable. And maybe it's the silence, and certainly there is that element. But also what's uncomfortable is the ambiguity. Not being sure where we are or where we're going, or letting something stay unfinished is also uncomfortable. And busy fixes that. This is something, particularly if you are in an elevated role. Now you're leading, you have a team that you're leading, or you're managing a team of people, or you're managing other leaders. A lot of times, if you have come from that role, you know exactly what to do. So the instinct is to go and get it done. We got to keep things moving. We got to keep things going faster. But the challenge is that is not what your role now requires. It requires something different of you. And if you think about, like in movies, the hero can't be still. They pace, they tinker, they train, they prepare, right? You have those scenes where they're doing all this preparing. And a lot of times sitting just with the weight of something can be very, very, very uncomfortable. And you even see it in some series or even movies when they don't do that. My husband and I are watching this series called Pluribus, and there are a lot of empty spaces in that show. A lot of just people not talking. There's a reason for that, but there are a lot of just emptiness. Things moving really slow or things being really quiet. And it took me a while to adjust to that because part of me was like, what is going on here? What's happening? There's the trilogy, I guess it's a trilogy, but another movie series that I really like is The Equalizer with Denzel Washington. And if you ever notice how slowly he acts and responds to things before he gets into action. He's very deliberate when he's meeting the bad guy. He's very deliberate. He takes his time. He's very slow. He is very specific with his words, and he will pay attention to all the things that are happening around him. And really what he's doing in those couple of minutes is he's developing a strategy. He's strategizing. He's thinking, okay, I'm going to take these guys out, and these are the decisions that I'm going to make. This is how I'm going to do it. And my hypothesis is that I can do this in 15 seconds. And then somebody said something off, and he was like, okay, let's get started. And he clicks his timer on his watch, and then he does it. And then when he's done wiping everybody out, he looks at the time and he looks to see if his hypothesis is correct, if his theory is correct. Did he do it in 15 seconds or he was like, or did he do it in 19 seconds? And then he learned from that. And so, but giving yourself time to think through things actually creates more of an efficiency and a productivity than if you just keep yourself busy all the time. And that's something that we forget, particularly in certain roles that you might have. At some point in leadership, the work stops giving you an easy resolution. As you continue, and I don't even mean this just as you continue climbing or different roles, but as your role expands and as you start getting different types of responsibility, sometimes you don't get to finish everything. And frankly, you shouldn't be the one that's fixing everything either. because there's a collaboration or you have a team and there's delegation that needs to happen and there's a trust that needs to be built or an empowerment or you helping others to develop because you already have all the answers. Now they also need to learn those answers too. But the challenge is your nervous system does freak out a little bit, right? So you drift back to what's familiar, the task, the firefighting, the being needed, not because it's required, but because it's comforting. I was working with a client just the other day, and we were talking about that. And I asked him what he thought was one of the major things. And one of the things he said, which I was really happy that he said this, he's like, well, actually, sometimes my ego gets in the way too, because I used to be the guy, the go-to. And now that I have a different role that's not required of me, but there is a transition or separation of being that guy. It's hard to stop being the one to do everything, to be the fixer. But the challenge is, and what we talked about, what he is delaying is his own development at the next level of leadership, where now he fixes different kinds of problems, where he fixes and now thinks at a much higher level. And we start having conversations about strategy and not being the one that checks all the boxes. And it's a really hard thing to do. It's small, it's subtle, but these are some of the little barriers that get in the way of us actually accomplishing some of the things that we're trying to accomplish. So, and I will say this, let me say this actually very clearly. Busy is not the enemy. I'm not talking about not being busy. There's lots of things to do. What I'm talking about is unexamined busyness, meaning you thinking about, is this the best use of my time? Is this where I should be spending my time? Can someone else handle this? Am I pushing responsibility down to the level where it needs to be so I can handle some of these other things? When you don't question why you're doing something, sometimes you mistake that relief or getting things done for impact. You might mistake it for motivation or getting things done. But if you're halting other areas of growth for you and building your capability or your capacity for other things, it's not very efficient at all. And it's not helping you in the long run at all. So the next time you feel the urge to jump in, pause and ask yourself and do an honest assessment. What feeling am I trying to avoid right now? I had to spend the day, all day, doing that. What am I trying to avoid? What discomfort am I trying to avoid? If I didn't do this, what would I have to sit with? Is this actually mine to carry? It's another thing that a lot of people who want to be competent and do lots of things, they take on other people's responsibility. Let what's someone else's responsibility, let them have it. Keep it. Am I choosing resolution or am I choosing influence? And you answering those questions really do matter more than just a to-do list. And this isn't, again, it's not about doing nothing. It's about building a tolerance when the moments are not asking you to be the fixer, or it's not asking you to be the fastest. And you or maybe aren't the most useful person in the room, because that's where the next level of leadership starts and where that begins. So if you feel like I struggle with not being busy, I struggle with those silent spaces, I struggle with not being super, super productive, try and pause and take a moment and think about, what is it? What are you actually trying to avoid? And if the things I'm talking about feels a little bit uncomfortable, that's good. That's good. And it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. Discomfort does not mean it's wrong. It means that you're noticing something that's been kind of running on autopilot for a long time. And having that check in and the awareness is always the first crack in the pattern. So take a moment and pause. One last question maybe to sit with. Where in your life are you staying busy because slowing down would ask more of you than speeding up? You don't have to have all the answers today. And these are just questions that are very, very helpful to help you to get through to the next level. Because a lot of times we're just doing the same things over and over and over again every day. So where is the best place for you to be spending your time? And Where can you add more sitting and thinking and strategic thinking time? Because when you slow down, oftentimes it helps you to speed up later on. All right. We don't need the answers today. We just want to start noticing where it shows up. Next time, I think I'm going to talk a little bit about, needing the cost of needing an agenda, or the cost of needing to know exactly everything that's happening and where that might be getting in the way, and why structure sometimes protects you from stepping into leveling up your influence. But in the meantime, talk about and think about what you're avoiding, and I will see you next time. Hey, if something in this episode resonated, I want you to know you don't have to navigate it alone. This is the work we do inside the Leadership Lab, building capacity, strengthening decision-making, and learning how to lead with intention through change. If you're curious about working together, you'll find more information in the show notes. I'm glad you were here. I'll see you next time.